Awesome. We are live. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to welcome Yuri, our VP of Design at Framer here on a lovely LinkedIn Live and we're gonna dive deep into behind the scenes of Framer's new landing page, give you some landing page tips and some very actionable advice on how you can use Framer for your designs. As we wait for our buddies to trickle in, we'd love to know about you in the chat. So in the chat, let us know what you're tuning in from and what tools do you use to design websites and landing pages. Let me just double check our LinkedIn Live. Awesome, it is live. And there is a slight 30-second delay between what we see here and what you see on LinkedIn, but we will be answering a lot of your questions in the chat. Yuri, where are you from, and what tools do you use to design websites and landing pages?
Yeah, so let's just start with an introduction about myself.
Cool. Oh yeah, sure.
So I am from Amsterdam, and I in the Netherlands, and I work at Framer, as Grace said. I am the head of marketing, so not the VP of like the entirety of design. There's way more design within Framer, but I currently run the marketing team, but I am mostly also just a designer myself. That's also how I joined Framer. I joined Framer about 7 years ago as a very junior designer, I would say. I was still in college doing a bunch of like different design stuff, but the way I joined Framer was that I was actually just posting a bunch of my work that I was prototyping in several different tools, also like a previous version of Framer. And I was posting that on Dribbble, which sort of got me noticed by one of the founders of Framer. And that's sort of how I joined Framer. I decided to drop out of college and just fully go for Framer. So still very junior designer when I joined 7 years ago, and sort of touched a lot of parts of Framer, but I was mostly interested in just like doing all of the marketing stuff design-wise. So working on the website, working on a lot of different marketing assets, basically anything that you see on social, the videos that you sometimes see, like where we announce new features in Framer. I worked on a bunch of those. So touched pretty much everything related to marketing in terms of design. And then, yeah, sort of at some point started leading the team. So looking at what we should work on next, and like keeping sort of an eagle eye on everything that marketing is doing. But I would say I still split my time between design and sort of doing a bit of management, because I still see myself a designer, and that's also what I enjoy doing the most. What tools do I use to design? I would say it's 100% Framer. So it's funny to sometimes read that people really see Framer as like a website building tool, which is true. That is what it primarily is. But Framer over the years has taken on many different forms, obviously always in sort of like a design tool context. But I think Framer in general is just a fantastic design tool, and it is my design tool of choice. So I pretty much design anything that I do for work or for Framer in Framer, as long as it is capable of doing that. Obviously, you can't make videos or record videos with Framer, but doing marketing assets, obviously building the entire website, that's what we do in Framer. So framer.com, if you go to framer.com, not the app, but the marketing website, that is fully built in Framer. So that's pretty much the only tool that I use all day to design. And yeah, like I said, Framer has taken on many different forms over the years. So 7 years ago, Framer was a very simple prototyping tool that lets you import your sketch design. So back in the day, not many people were using Figma. It was mostly Sketch. And you could design your sort of like app that you were working on, your iOS or Android app, or maybe even a website in Sketch. And then you could import all of those layers, and you could animate them with Framer using a very simple JavaScript library. So essentially it was like a UI on top of a very simple JavaScript library that would let you animate your designs. And over the years, Framer evolved into having its own sort of like design capabilities, so you wouldn't have to design in Sketch anymore. And then it slowly turned into a website building tool, because we were, as Framer, using, like I said, I'm using Framer all day to design everything. So we were also back in the day using Framer to design our web pages, as most of you probably do in tools like Figma and Sketch. We were and are still doing that in Framer. And then because Framer was a prototyping tool that would like let us animate all of this stuff in those designs, we were building those web pages or designing those web pages and then essentially prototyping them up to the point where we could, it almost felt like a real website or a real web page. And then we would always get to the point of like, but now why do we have to rebuild this in another tool or hand it off to a front-end developer to actually make it real, and sort of like restart that whole process and then go into another cycle of 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks of making that design that already felt very real because it had everything that we needed, but actually make it real. And that's sort of what the current version of Framer came out of. So that was 2 years ago, where we made a pretty big pivot to actually make that happen, where you could design your entire website, or like design as you would in Figma, as most of you are used to. So you like design your front page, you set up your breakpoints next to each other, but while you're designing, it is actually turning into a real website that you can publish, instead of having to go through that cycle again with a front-end developer, or maybe making it real in another no-code tool and sort of like doing double the work. And that allows us as a design team on the marketing side to move very quickly and sort of like design front pages or landing pages in 2 weeks, and then not having to do anything else because the design is actually the development of the page. Yeah, that is sort of like a quick overview of myself and Framer, but also, yeah, why we use Framer internally. It sounds like sort of like a marketing talk of me trying to sell Framer, but as a designer who joined Framer 7 years ago, it sort of like Framer, what it is currently, has always been a dream tool to me, because I'm not a front-end developer. I know some code. I've built some websites by hand, but it has always sort of like been a dream where you can just like, whatever you're designing is turning into the real thing, and it actually works very well. Instead of sort of being limited in your creativity by what you can do in code. And now that sort of creativity is just like, it's completely unlocked for me, because whatever I can think of visually and what I can put on the screen visually can also be on the website. So I'm not limited by what I can do or the work that I have to put in with a developer.
That's so awesome. And you notice you started, you were posting your work on Dribble, and that's how you discovered. So I think as designers, I think it's important to share your work online and get discovered. It's so cool that you're building tools that empower designers to not have to work with devs. They can ship products automatically without that. Let's see who's in the chat. So we have Julie, who is from Houston, Texas, who actually uses Framer for her own personal website. Awesome. We have Michael from California, who uses Webflow, WordPress, Wix, and Framer. Wow, nice. A lot of tools.
It's a lot,
yeah, Wendy for NYC used Framer and WordPress. Yes, this session is recorded on our Design Buddies LinkedIn Live and YouTube, but if you'd like to ask us questions, we will highly encourage you to join us live. And for those buddies just joining in, I see a lot of people on Discord, so just join in LinkedIn Live. Let us know where you're from and what tools you use. LinkedIn user, I guess it's a bug not showing, NYC using Framer, just started using Framer to build their portfolio before their portfolio was on Squarespace. Another joining NYC used Framer Design Studio to create websites. From India, currently learning Framer to build personal websites. Jess from Bristol, UK, used WordPress, but excited to use Framer. Lisa from Philippines, looking forward to learn more about Framer. Aizo, oh, hello, Aizo, from Istanbul, excited to learn more about Framer. Terry from Tennessee, Faithia from Columbus, Ohio. Oh, I was there speaking at a conference. Yes, Seattle used Notion, amazing.
Notion for websites, it's great too.
I love that.
Yeah, it works.
I've seen Notion portfolios. Yeah, it's so fast. It's so useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So we recently saw the new Framer landing page designs, which looks really awesome. What prompted? Like, why did you redesign it? And what were some of their goals?
Yeah, I can give you like a very well thought about answer about why it's helping us reach certain goals or how we want to talk about Framer, which is definitely true. There's some of that. But one of the other biggest reasons is also what I just highlighted is that Framer sort of previously, when we would design a website in Figma or an older version of Framer where we couldn't turn it into an actual website, we would just work on the design and then work with a front end developer to make it real. That would be, and I think for most companies or individuals, that's still true. That would be a big time investment, especially for a startup or a company who would decide like, all right, we need to redesign our landing page or our front page because we, for example, need to update the messaging, or we released a bunch of new features that we want to highlight on the front page. Sort of deciding to go into that cycle of doing a redesign, that would be a big investment because you know you're going to be in it for quite a while. Previously, we like to sort of like turn around projects pretty quickly, so we were pretty quick anyway. But I think for most people or companies, that would be a time investment of at least a month, where you would go into a redesign, go through different iterations, cycles, feedback, and then when you actually were happy with the design and you finished it, you would go into another cycle with the developer to actually make it real, which would take another few weeks or whatever, how long that might be. But one of the biggest reasons that we like to also just redesign a bunch of pages on our website and our front page especially is that time investment with Framer has become a lot smaller because what often happens is obviously we're designers. Everybody on the marketing team is a designer. So what happens with designers that we all know, if you look at a page for too long, for example, your own portfolio or the front page of your own company website, you get bored of it. You get sick of it. You want to redesign it. You saw some cool new thing on the internet that you also want to use, or you're just tired of the color green and you want to try something else. So one of the biggest reasons is we redesign it because we can and we enjoy doing it. But also because that time investment has just become a lot less big. It would previously take us a month or even more. Now it takes us 2 weeks with just 2 people. And one of those people includes myself. And like I said, I would say only 20% of my time is actually spent on designing. So I would say you could probably do it by yourself if you're a great designer and you know Framer. Learning Framer is not that hard because it's very similar to other tools like Figma. But if you have some design skills in other design tools, you can turn around landing pages, websites in Framer very quickly. So big reason is that we like doing it. We can, and because Framer just allows us to do it very quickly. Obviously, there's also the part that we ship features pretty quickly at Framer. And like I said, Framer as a web design tool has only been around for about 2 years. And what happened when we initially launched Framer was that it was a great landing page building tool. So you could very quickly design a single landing page, but not really grow it into a very big website. Over the past 2 years, we've shipped so many great features that actually allow you to build huge websites in Framer. So like I said, Framer.com fully runs on Framer and it's over 1,000 pages. I don't know exactly what we're up to now, but with like a very robust CMS, localization, so you can like translate your site into different languages very quickly, but also localize certain content. So like show different images based on where your visitor on your website is. That allows you to build very large and professional websites with Framer. And over the 2 years, we've shipped a bunch of those features that allow you to do that. But we hadn't updated our front page in quite a long time. So it was just time for us to give a critical look at our front page and sort of look at, are we still saying the right things that we want our potential users to know? in order for them to try Framer. And we just looked at a bunch of features that we shipped. They weren't included on the front page. We released a bunch of great animation features as well that lets you quickly animate things on your website when things scroll into view or when things appear, for example. So we just like took all of those features that we shipped and the features that we already had in Framer, threw them onto a large pile and said, all right, which ones do we really want people first landing on Framer.com to know about in order to convince them to try Framer? So that's also one of the big reasons that we redesigned the front page. But yeah, I would say the time investment has just become so small that we'll do it again in a month where we say, all right, we shipped one big new feature. It kind of needs a new redesign. It's only going to take us 2 weeks because of the speed that we can ship with or design with Framer. So yeah, those are the big reasons that we sort of did it and also why we did it so quickly.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That is really quick. And it showcases a lot of the great features Framer has as well. We're excited to dive into that next, but we have a lot of more buddies joining us in the comments. It looks Jofin made a video on Framer recently. You can check out the link over there, anyone in the audience. Terry uses Adobe Express in Figma. Fabio is from Germany, Framer expert, using Framer.
Nice.
Art San Diego from the Philippines. Framer is my go-to low-code tool for web. I use it for my studio website. Well, we have like 3 continents here with us today. Cause from the Philippines made a video, and Matthew uses WordPress, Figma, Framer, Miro, HTML, CSS, JS query. You previously leveraged Framer for most projects that require a lot of interaction. Proto.io, try to focus on specific platforms and work with the best tool. Carissa, good morning. Use Framer for my UX UI portfolio. Love it over Figma. From India, have seen many designer developers portfolio built in Framer. Can I tell that outside the portfolio games? From Williams from Nigeria. Oh, 4 continents now. Amazing. India. Cool. We will be taking questions as we go along, but Yuri would love if we could go into like sharing your screen and dive into your process of designing Framer's new landing page and what tools and features do you use to build the features in Figma and Framer.
Of course, yeah. So I saw a question in the chat whether there's a desktop/laptop app. And yes, I'm actually, what you see on the screen right now is actually the desktop app for Framer. So if you go to framer.com/download, you can actually download it for Mac OS and Windows. So you can use it in your browser, but also as a standalone app. I prefer the standalone app. It's just a nicer experience because you have it in your dock. I'm using Mac, so yeah, I love using it that way. So yeah, let's just dive into how we built the website, or sort of like what our website looks like in Framer. Feel free to jump in and like ask questions if you see specific parts. Maybe there's people in the chat as well that want to highlight some things that they want to know about how it's designed or sort of like set up in Framer. But to do a very quick overview of like what Framer looks like, what it is, if you're not familiar with it. So if you're looking at this screen, it might look very familiar to Figma or other design tools. So we have our pages on the left. We can also switch to our layers, which is very similar to what you're used to in other design tools, with all of the layers sort of like nested. We also have an assets panel, which contains a bunch of our components. So you can componentize things, which you might be familiar with, but also a bunch of styles, like text styles that we use throughout the entire website. Link styles. There's a bunch of things that you can find in the assets panel, which is basically all of the assets that you use in your website. And then if you select anything, obviously on the right, you have the properties for that element. So I have a text layer selected, and there's a bunch of properties like the width, the height, but also effects. So this is where you add animations to your elements, but also all of the text styling. So this is very similar to other design tools where you just like you work on a freeform canvas. So as you can see, I can also just pan around on the canvas, which looks very familiar to other design tools. You're not sort of like looking at one single view of your website and then having to switch to breakpoints. All of your breakpoints are sort of like laid out next to each other. So you have a quick overview of what your website looks like while you're designing. If you want, you can also like add extra breakpoints. So you can add different widths, and then if you want to optimize it for an even smaller device or like an even larger width for your site, it's super easy. It all feels very similar to design tools. So that's why it's sort of like a great workflow for designers. You're designing like you're used to, but you're actually building a website. So yeah, like you can see, there's a lot of pages, and a lot of these are also CMS pages. So we also have a very large CMS. So this is, for example, the CMS for our blog. So we have a blog on Framer. This all runs in the CMS. So you can create new items in your blog, which then sort of like generates a new page on your website. And that's why we have thousands of pages, because there are 66 blog posts, but also tons of pages for the gallery where we showcase a ton of great websites. So if you want to learn more about the CMS, you can find that on framer.com/academy as well, how that works. But yeah, diving into that front page that we designed, so you can see we're actually on the homepage. This thing that you're looking at is actually what is live on framer.com if you go there. So this project, what you're looking at is actually the actual website. This is what is published. If I make any changes here and click publish, that goes live to framer.com. So that's how easy it is to sort of like update your website. Obviously, there's like some checks in place where you can make sure that not everything that you publish instantly goes live. But if we were to make changes here and I will publish it, that goes live to framer.com. So this is the actual website. There's no other tool attached to it or other workflows. And like other prototyping or design tools, there's also a preview built in. So if we click on play here, or you can also click on play in the top right corner with your main breakpoint selected, it actually goes into the preview. And this will let you preview your website, how it would actually go live in the browser. So this basically just like mimics a browser where you can see how all of the animations work. If you have videos in your website, like we do in the header of the front page, that video will actually play so you can see what that looks like. But like I said, any animation that you've added to your website, you can see here. So as we start scrolling down, you can see some of those animations start playing. I could dive into how those are set up a little bit. And it also lets you preview your breakpoints. So if you actually just resize this, you can see it switches to different breakpoints. The mobile navigation actually jumps in, which you can use. So it's a great way to sort of like preview your website before you publish it and view it in the browser, because this is basically what you're going to see in the browser. Yeah, and this way you can just like scroll through your entire front page. And this is how we sort of like build the website and test it. So scrolling down, you can see a bunch of the interactions that happen, elements coming in as you scroll down, or scrolling left and right as you scroll down or up. A bunch of these interactions as well, things moving in and out of view. Super easy to add in Framer and sort of like very quickly create a very good looking website that has a bunch of the animations that you love on websites. And then without knowing any code or knowing how to set that up in maybe more difficult tools. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions yet in the chat about specific parts of the front page that we might want to dive into, or.
There are some questions like, does Framer have a Discord community? Yes, we have a Discord community at framer.community/home. I'll be kind of selecting some questions from the, oh yeah, that's all we got. I'm trying to understand this question. Can you tell that outside the portfolio games, what is the great level in the world of website development can we achieve? I think...
But maybe the question is about that. I think a lot of designers are currently testing out Framer to build their portfolios, which is great. My own website also runs on Framer. It's a very simple site, but obviously I have to make my own website in Framer. But most of, or a lot of websites that you currently see are from designers doing their portfolio in Framer, which makes a lot of sense. And I think that's also how a lot of designers get into Framer, by just trying it for their portfolio. But I think the question is about what other sort of things can you achieve with Framer outside of designing your portfolio? And I think the page that you're currently looking at, so framer.com, is a great example of websites that you can also build with Framer. So very large marketing websites that have hundreds to thousands of pages, that have a blog, that have, for example, Framer also has the template marketplace. So yeah, that is, I think, sort of like, as long as you can imagine it in the website world. So Framer is great for marketing websites. So obviously there's like a big distinction between Framer has the app that runs in the browser, which is where you design your thing, which is what we're looking at. This also runs in the browser. But Framer then also has the marketing website where we talk about the features, we have the blog, we have the marketplace, we show all of the great websites that people have built on the gallery. So that is what we see as a marketing website. And those are actually the things that Framer is really great for. Obviously, it's also great for your portfolio, but I think that's how a lot of designers get started. If you're going to try out a new tool, it's probably going to be with your portfolio. So that's a reason why you see a lot of designers doing portfolios in Framer. But we've also seen that turn into them then using Framer for their actual job, or like introducing it at a startup they work for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says, this is my second Framer event in the last week. Oh, probably attended like Peter Chris's. It's amazing. Seeing also use e-commerce website. Yeah, on the template marketplace, there's like restaurants, there's startups, there's B2B SaaS templates, all the templates you can find. And I'm gonna go through some of the questions, if it's all right, we have here. So I'm gonna go through it in order. Catherine asks, you mentioned that you can't create videos in Framer. What is your favorite tool for videos that's easy to implement easily in Framer?
Favorite tool for videos to implement in Framer. Yeah, so by sort of me saying you can't make videos in Framer is that you can't actually you can't make an animation and then export it as a video in Framer. Framer is a website building tool, so you're building for the web and not for video. But what we often do as well is within the marketing team, we obviously we have to show you what we made. So we post our work. Like I said, how I got my job at Framer is posting my work on Dribbble. That is often in video form, especially if you're doing interactive stuff like websites or prototypes, stuff like that. So what we also do often is when we want to promote a website or a web page that we made, like the front page, we want to show that off in a video on Twitter or LinkedIn or any other social platform. So Framer is sort of great at making those interactions and showing what you can do. So as you can see, like if I scroll through the page, all those animations play. I think this is one of my favorite sections where you see a ton of things happening as you scroll through the page. My favorite tool for then sort of showing those animations in a video form is ScreenFlow, which a bunch of us use internally. And it's basically a very simple and great screen recording tool. So you just hit record on your screen, you select the area that you want to record, and then we turn that into a video by sort of like showcasing what Framer can do. There's a bunch of different tools like Screen Studio, which is even simpler. That lets you also record your screen. But I would say it's not necessarily about the tool that you use, but rather what you do with it. So find any great screen recording tool to record what you made, especially if you're showcasing interactive work that you made, like a website or a prototype. Record it and put it in your website, your portfolio, showcase it online. I think that pretty much answers the question. So ScreenFlow or Screen Studio, great tools to
ScreenFlow and Screen Studios. I'm gonna check them out as well. Just ask, can you open an existing HTML file to work on it in Framer?
Great question. You can't actually just open an existing HTML file or drop it into Framer. But what we do have is a really cool Chrome plugin So if you go to the Chrome Web Store, or you go to our website, and I think it's, let me see, I think it's framer.com/ framer.com/figma-2-html. Maybe somebody can throw it in the chat, or I can do it myself.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to log in, but if you Google Figma 2 HTML or Framer Figma 2 HTML, or is that actually the right one?
Yeah, I'm
I think it's called, no, it's actually HTML to Framer. So let's see, I'm actually talking about the Figma plugin, but if you Google HTML to Framer, we have a really cool Chrome plugin, which will show up as the first item. And if you install this Chrome plugin in Google Chrome or Arc, which is very similar, it lets you go to your own website. Obviously, you can go to any website, but we don't encourage anybody stealing other people's work. But if you already have a website that is built in HTML, you can go to your website, click on the plugin, and then select any element or multiple elements in that website and copy it and then paste it into Framer. So that's a great way of, like, for example, porting over your existing website to Framer by copy and pasting a bunch of elements. But it's also just a great way of, like, learning how things are built in Framer by going to a website that you think is cool, or your own portfolio, and copying and pasting things from HTML into Framer. Obviously, it's not flawless because it has to do some translations, but we made this plugin to try and help you to sort of, like, quickly get started or help you understand how things in Framer work. So no, not full HTML files, but we have a Chrome plugin that sort of lets you do that in a similar way. The other one that I was talking about is Figma to Framer. So we also have a Figma plugin that lets you, maybe you already have an existing web page design in Figma. If you install our Figma plugin, you can also copy and paste your entire designs from Figma into Framer and then publish it as a real website. Obviously, there's some work to do to make it responsive, but it very quickly lets you sort of, like, go from a blank canvas to something that you have already designed in Figma and get started with that.
Yeah. HTML to Framer Chrome plugin, as well as the Figma to Framer plugin. We have a lot of great questions in the chat, but oftentimes as designers, we work with developers, other designers, researchers. How does you and your team collaborate, and how do people collaborate on Framer to build a website?
Yeah, great question. So Framer Framer is actually a tool that lets you collaborate live with each other. So if you're familiar with tools like Figma, it lets you jump into a project all at the same time and sort of, like, see multiple cursors that you've probably seen before. Framer also has that. So if we look at the screen currently that I have open, you can see that, like, some people on my team are actually in the project right now. So Monica, who is on the marketing team, she's a designer. She is actually currently working on a different page somewhere in Framer. So you can see that she is active in the project. We also have Eduardo, who is a product designer. So he works on the Framer product. He is probably staging an update for Framer. So if you go to framer.com/updates, you can read about all of the updates that Framer has coming up, actually just released. And he's probably working on making sure that goes up on the site soon when we ship something new. So he's also in there. You can see tons of other people from the team have viewed the project in the last 8 hours, 23 hours. Let me see. You can also actually see, if we go to publish and then changes, you can see if somebody has made any changes to certain pages. So you can see that I'm currently looking at the homepage. I think I probably clicked on some elements or, like, moved something around. So you can see that I made some changes to the homepage. Like I said, Monica's working on a different page. So she's working on those pages. You can see that she made changes there. Like I said, Eduardo is working on some blog articles. So he is making changes there. So you can actually see what changes were made. Yeah, that is sort of like how we collaborate. Obviously, we don't really have to work with developers. I think that was in the question, because everything that we design is it's already the website. So it's mostly just designers working on the website in Framer. What are other ways that we collaborate? Was there more in that question?
No, I was just curious because like sometimes like and oftentimes in a company setting, you're usually not the only designer. You work with like designers, researchers, and how the collaboration
Yeah.
features on Framework. Does Framework have any developers in the company?
I mean, yeah, obviously, like
Oh
I
yeah,
think
because
I would say the largest part of the team is engineers or developers
yeah,
working on actual Framer, so the
like
app that
front
you're looking
end.
at.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that has a back end, a front end. We have cloud engineers because everything is a web app. There's tons of engineers working on tons of different things. I think in the sense of like developers that work on the website, yes and no. We have one designer, I would say, on the team who was previously sort of like our go-to main front-end developer. So when we would 2 years ago, when we didn't build our website in Framer, he was mostly working on the front end of building the actual site. So myself or Monica, who is on the team, would like design parts of a page, and then he would turn that into an actual website with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But I would say he has also fully converted to Framer, so he's also mostly just like designing everything in Framer and publishing it without code. He is still very much into front end, so there's certain parts obviously in Framer that are hard to do without code. I would say any serious marketing website is always going to require a little bit of code, but with Framer we make it very easy. So there's things like cookie tracking, Google Analytics tracking, any other pixel tracking that you want to do for ads or whatever sort of like you want to do with marketing analytics. Some of that still requires a little bit of code. We're working on a bunch of great things like improving analytics in Framer so that becomes easier without code. But it's if you want to make a very serious marketing website, it is great to have somebody on the team, maybe an engineer or maybe a front ender who's a little bit more technical, that understands some of those parts. But I would say only like 5% of his time is spent on that. And it's mostly also just to enable designers to then do a bunch of things without code. And if you have a simple website, like most websites don't use any code in Framer. It's just what you see on the canvas that is being deployed to the web. But yeah, we have tons of engineers in Framer. Nobody really working on the website.
Oh yeah. I was just curious because because you mentioned how in the landing page you can make it all with designers. But yeah, Framer is like a very complex software, so there's lots of engineer
Oh, of course, yeah.
resources there.
On the
Yeah.
background, like on
In
the
the
surface,
background.
we try to make
Hmm.
it very easy, but obviously, like in the background, a
Hmm.
lot of things are being engineered by some great engineers.
Yeah, very technical. Yeah, I'm gonna go through some questions we see. Jaspreet asks, what are some of your favorite training materials? How do people learn more about Framer? I know you have
Yeah,
a great YouTube
so
channel, but anything
yeah,
else?
we have a pretty good YouTube channel at Framer on YouTube. You can also find all of the content or most of the content that is on there on framer.com/academy. You can also find it on, if you go to framer.com and then just go to the resource tab in the navigation, you can find it there. We have Joseph on the team, who you might know from Sketch and previously InVision, who did a bunch of great educational materials for other great tools. He recently joined the team and is now working on a brand new Framer Fundamentals course. And he is publishing videos every week. So he's going to take you from knowing nothing about Framer to becoming the absolute best at Framer. So new videos every week from him. You can subscribe to us on YouTube or just follow us on Twitter or any other social channel where we post those. I would say in a few weeks' time, that is going to be the best thing or the best place to learn Framer. But obviously, if you want to go very quickly, we have a 40-minute video. If you go to framer.com/academy, it's all the way at the top. It's a 40-minute video, which will take you through all of the basics that Framer has to offer to publish your first site.
Yeah, I watched that when I was first learning Framer too. It's very helpful. Yeah. LinkedIn user asks, where do people find the templates people can use?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. If you go to framer.com/marketplace, that's where we have all the templates. We're making a lot of great improvements to the marketplace. So unfortunately, we don't have a search bar, but that's coming very soon. But you can filter based on category and which popular or templates are the most popular at that moment. So yeah, framer.com/marketplace, that's a great place to start with free templates, but also some more premium templates.
Awesome. There's another question I was trying to find. Harold asks, what's the difference between Framer and Bubble?
I'm not too familiar with Bubble, actually. So I think Bubble is more focused on building actual apps without code. And Framer is just very optimized for building websites. So obviously an app can also be a website, but like I said, Framer is very optimized for building great marketing websites, your portfolio, a website for your startup or your side project. And I think Bubble is more focused on sort of like full app development. So maybe you want to build like a marketplace for something, or yeah, I'm not too familiar with Bubble, but that's what I understand of it.
We have a lot of designers using Figma currently right now. This question's kind of long, but I think it's interesting. Michael asks, what is the best way to build in Figma that allows a seamless transfer to Framer? Because I assume a lot of designers on their teams work collaborate on Framer, because that's what I did when I worked as a designer. Of course, building with auto layout is effective since it acts as a CSS flexbox and transfers it to the stack in your experience. What's the best way to nest elements and components so the transition is seamless? As an experienced Figma user, do you find yourself building in Figma, then transferring to Figma, or building? I guess like for people who want to start using Framer and currently have a lot of websites built on Figma currently, what's the best way they can do transfer that?
Yeah. So I completely understand that some people go like, wait, but I design in Figma, right? And then I put it in Framer. Completely understand that, because that's a tool that you're familiar with and you sort of like use Figma to design all of your stuff. Like I said, we just design everything in Framer directly. So that would be my main advice, like just start in Framer. It feels very similar to Figma. It is a design tool. So if you give that a shot, I'm sure you're gonna like it. I think obviously there's still a great case for, yeah, but I'm familiar with Figma and I already have a bunch of designs there. What do I do? Like I said, we have a Figma plugin that lets you copy and paste entire pages, but also single elements to Framer. So I would say try experimenting with that plugin where you can copy and paste things into Framer and see what it sort of does in Framer and where you can take it from there. If you want some advice in terms of like setting up your project, we have a great tutorial on that Figma to Framer plugin on the Academy. So if you just go to framer.com/academy and look for that tutorial, there's a great one where Eduardo explains a little bit about the best way to sort of like set up your layout in Figma, and then the best way to go about copy and pasting. But if you're familiar with auto layout in Figma, that's very familiar to stacks in Framer, which is essentially just CSS flexbox, but with a UI on top of it. So I would say use that as much as possible, because you're actually already thinking about how your layout should scale across different widths, and how that's going to work on different breakpoints. So if you're familiar with that in Figma, that's very similar to stacks in Framer. So that will translate very well. I think if you copy and paste that stuff from Figma to Framer, it's also going to translate. So that's going to work very well. But yeah, my main advice would be, if you want to be very successful, just start designing in Framer. But I think a great gateway for designers to get started with Framer is obviously like taking a design that they already have in Figma into Framer by copy and pasting it, and then hopefully sort of that thing clicks for them where they go, wait, but Framer is actually a design tool and I can design in Framer. I don't have to do the back and forth, because like I've been trying to say for probably 2 years now, is like the reason we turned Framer into this is to take away that whole sort of like translation step in going from a design tool to another tool, a no-code website building tool, or going from a design tool into development with code. We want to take away that step. So Framer is a design tool where you design your website, but you're also building your website. So to say, hey, I'm going to design in Figma, then copy and paste it into Framer, again, do all of that work of like setting it up, that sort of like defeats the whole purpose of Framer. Like I said, I completely understand you're familiar with Figma. That's where you sort of like feel like you can be your most creative or where you're the quickest. But I would strongly encourage you, like, give Framer a shot as a design tool. It works almost like Figma with a bunch of web building capabilities on top of it. If you don't want to do that, use the Figma plugin and watch that tutorial on the Academy, because it has a bunch of great tips on how to make sure that what you copy and paste actually goes into Framer the right way, so that you don't have to like redo a bunch of stuff and like you run into issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Framer is both a design and a website builder tool. There's a lot of questions. I will try to run through cover as many content as we can in our last 14 minutes. We have Jason. Oh, hello, Jason. Jason asks, instead of using a CMS feature, is it possible to import a JSON file to populate various parts of a website?
Yeah, great question. So what I do know that we have is you can import JSON into the CMS. So I think we also have a tutorial on that on the Academy, which shows you that you can just set up a JSON file with a bunch of data that you have, paste it into the CMS, and that's going to populate a collection in the CMS that you can then use in your design. But to give you a very small sneak peek, I can't really show you anything, but we announced that we were going to release Framer plugins earlier this year. It is actually releasing later this year, pretty soon. And I know that a bunch of people are already working on a bunch of great plugins that enable some of these features. So you can like import JSON into the CMS, import JSON into parts of the canvas, or like populate parts of your designs. Like Framer plugins is going to open up a whole new and you sort of like, ecosystem for Framer. So I know a bunch of people are working on great plugins which might enable some of this. Maybe they're not working on it yet, but I'm sure it will come very soon. But currently, to like just throw some JSON into Framer and populate various parts of the website, yes, you can through the CMS. Maybe that answers your question. Maybe it doesn't, but there are ways to do it. And if not, it's going to be possible very soon through plugins. And if it's not there yet, maybe you can build your own plugin.
Yeah, Framer plugins. Can you share anything else about what's coming up with Framer with our buddies here? Like direction.
No, like I said, obviously plugins, which is going to enable a bunch of things that I can't even think of. Like what you can do with plugins is basically manipulate things on the canvas, but also manipulate things in the CMS. So a lot of people have been asking for CMS API. We're going to solve parts of this through plugins. So you can, through plugins, manipulate the CMS. So that's going to enable a bunch of new use cases for whatever people can dream up in terms of creating plugins. What other things? Obviously, like we're making huge improvements to the CMS. So our CMS is already pretty robust, and like you can build very serious sort of like websites with blogs and whatever you can use the CMS for. But we're making a lot of great improvements there to just make it easier to grow your website and manage all of your content. And obviously we have a super dedicated team that is just making the entire editor in Framer a lot more creative. So our tagline, or like one of our taglines, has always been making the web more creative and giving you the tools to do that. So giving designers the tools on a canvas that they're familiar with to sort of like let their creativity go wild, or run wild. and not limiting them in what they can do in code. So I know that team, which we call the Canvas team, because it's everything that they're doing on the canvas, is working on tons of amazing features related to new types of effects and animations and text and all of that stuff. I can't go into detail because obviously our roadmap is very much up in the air. I know a bunch of great things are being worked on and being planned, but not too much detail. Just that plugins is coming, lots of CMS updates. I think we shipped over 100 features or maybe even more last year. So we're definitely not done yet this year. Lots of great stuff coming this year still. We're only like halfway into the year. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, we have tons of great stuff coming.
Excited, making the web more creative, more plugins and CMS and more surprises coming. Yeah, kind of jumping back to our audience questions, Nadia asked, can we integrate / embed one page from Framer onto another hard-coded website?
Yes. Let's see. So yeah, obviously a very simple thing would be embedding a page or like embedding parts of a page. So if you're familiar with iframes, you can just embed parts of a page or like a page into your website. We also offer a feature called a reverse proxy, which is it lets you sort of put parts of a page or parts of. So let's say you have a website already built in HTML and CSS. It runs on a server. Maybe you built it, or maybe it runs with Vercel or something like that, and you want to integrate maybe just a single page from Framer into that website, so it runs on the same domain. That is possible. We've also done that for a very long time when we were transitioning our old site from custom build to Framer. It's through a feature called reverse proxy, but I think it is gated behind the Pro or the Enterprise plan. I would have to check on the pricing page, but you can find it on framer.com/pricing. I think we also have some help articles on it on framer.com/help. So if you want to learn more about that, you can find that on our website, but it is possible. It does require some setup, but I think we're also thinking about making that easier, where you can actually just like have your existing site that runs on a custom domain, and it might be built in another tool, or it might be built with HTML and CSS, and you just want to integrate a part of your Framer website into that domain. I think we're going to try to make that easier this year. So something like that is hopefully coming. I know that it's being talked about or thought about. Because a lot of people are asking for it, and it would be a great addition to obviously for a lot of people, they're going to say, we already have our entire website built in HTML and CSS, but we want to try Framer and integrate a part of it with our existing site. That's a very common question. So we want to see if we can make that easier. It is currently possible, but it requires some setup. But you can find some of that on framer.com/help, I think.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm also curious, I know we have 7 minutes here. Are you flexible to go a little bit over time? I noticed there's a lot of questions we have from our audience here.
Yeah, let's do 2 or 3 more.
Okay, sounds good. I also wanted to make sure that you also wanted to cover everything as well. I'm also curious, as a designer, how did you test the landing page with users and gather feedback from it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would like to sort of maybe answer that in 2 parts. So we have a ton of designers at Framer. So we have product designers on the marketing team, designers just working on visual parts of Framer. So ads, blog posts. We also have designers who work on videos, like I said. So we already have a ton of designers at Framer, and I would also say we're one of our own biggest users. So Framer.com is one of the biggest sites that runs on Framer. We are probably some of the people that use Framer the most because it is our main design tool. So a lot of the feedback also internally on the product sort of comes from designers within Framer. Because we can move very quickly with Framer and build pages out within a week or 2. In that process, we just also share it around the company very often, and saying, the story that we're telling here, does that make sense? What are we missing? How would you phrase it? What features, for example, do we need to show on the front page? Product designers might have feedback on that, how we talk about those features, but maybe a bit short-sighted, or like, I would say that obviously because we're a big power user, we are also pretty good at like deciding what should go on the front page, because we try to sell you Framer on the front page, but we also know pretty well what makes Framer very powerful and great for our use case, which is building websites. So most of it comes from the team internally, but obviously there's also, you need some external feedback because you have a lot of blind spots if you're using Framer, working on Framer. Mm-hmm. So we also have a bunch of power users that we're very close to. We have a ton of them that we communicate with in Slack about tons of things. We have, for example, a Framer beta channel that a ton of users are helping us out with testing features early. But we also just have a bunch of like, we value the community a lot. So we some of our power users are very close to us, and we just like send new parts of the website to them. Or for example, we're trying out some new pricing packages or a new design for the pricing page or stuff like that. We send that to them and just see what their feedback is. And sometimes we get great feedback based on that we're completely missing ourselves. So I would say it's half gathering feedback from the team, because we are one of the biggest power users of Framer, and half asking some of the power users that we have within the community what they think about landing page designs or how we're trying to sell Framer.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, you're your own users, which is pretty unique, and having a small group of beta testers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know AI is such a big topic of discussion, especially in SF in our community. How does Framer integrate AI?
Yeah, hot topic for sure. Yeah, we have some AI tools built in. So like I said, you can localize your entire website for different locales. So we actually don't use this on framer.com yet. We might in the future, but I know there's some great websites out there. I think if you go to mollie.com, it's MOLLIE.com, which is a Dutch payment provider, similar to Stripe, but they're actually throughout the entirety of Europe. So they have localized their website in many different locales. So what that means is that they have translated their website to a different language and also show different visuals based on which country you're in. But all of those translations are possible through AI. So if you actually go to, I don't think I have a great demo for this, but if you go to localization, which is up at the top here, you can add a locale and you can select a language. So maybe we want to translate our website to Dutch because our current website is in English. You can select Dutch, which region that is in, because obviously there's different Dutch regions. So we're in the Netherlands. You can give your locale a name. And then you can translate your entire website with AI. So it is going to do that for you. Obviously, you can review all of those translations because AI is not perfect. But it is going to do a pretty good job at translating your entire website. You can also do it by word, or use that sort of like magic translate everything button. It's going to translate your entire website. And you can also give it an AI style. So this is basically like adding an extra prompt to your translations. So you can tell it, here's a great example of like translate content with a cheerful tone, or it's intended for an audience of designers. So basically telling the AI like, hey, if you're going to translate words on my website, this is what my tone of voice is like. These are words that we often use. These are words that you should avoid. Maybe even words that you never want to translate because it's a word commonly used in English and your own language. That is one AI integration. So translating your website. Another AI integration that we have is text rewrite. So for example, on the front page, we have this great headline, the web builder for stunning sites. maybe you need some inspiration for different versions of that headline. So you can click on any text layer that contains text, and then click on these two stars, which is instantly going to give you a different variation. So like you see, I don't know if you can see this on the stream, but if I hover this, it says rewrite with AI. So just to demo this, if I click this, you can see it's going to rewrite that, basically saying the same thing, but with different words. And you can do this an infinite amount of time. So you can very quickly, like in maybe a very quick and dirty way, write down what you want to tell people on your website, and then click on rewrite with AI. It's also going to take that AI style into account. So you can very quickly sort of like iterate on, how do I want to say this thing and how do I want to word it? Maybe you're not the best copywriter, or maybe you're not the best at English because it's not your native language, but your website has to be in English. This is a great way of like very quickly jotting down what you want to say and then getting a beautiful different version for it, and just like maybe basically like hammering that button, seeing which one works for you. So that's another great AI integration. Like I said, we have plugins coming up. I'm sure there's going to be some people creating AI plugins that maybe like let you generate some AI design or clean up your layer panel with AI, stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that in the future. But these are the two best AI integrations that we have. So helping you write better text and translating your entire website with AI.
That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing. I know we are at time. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience, or any other tips for designers that you haven't covered yet?
No, not really. Like, yeah, maybe just like summarize. I would say like, yeah, I would love for everybody to try Framer. If you're familiar with design tools like Figma or Sketch, I know that you're gonna love Framer. Give it a shot as a design tool. Maybe I should like rephrase this. I think Framer is primarily a design tool that publishes websites instead of a website building tool that has some design capabilities. Framer is a way better design tool than most people expect. I know I'm kind of like biased in trying to sell it, but give it a shot. Yeah, so if you're a designer looking to build a website, try Framer. It's very familiar to design tools and actually lets you be very creative on the web instead of maybe being limited by what you can do with your technical skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Not any other big tips. Share your work online if you're trying to like. I think Framer is a great tool as well for like very quickly sharing your work online. You can create something, hit publish, it's online. You can send it to a job that you're applying for, or just like getting feedback on it, like getting your work online, showing it to others. That's how I got my job at Framer, just like publishing work on Dribbble, publishing work on even your Twitter profile. Framer enables that. But also, if you're using any other tool, just like start there. It's the most important thing. Like if you want to land a job, get better, go out there with your work, and like don't be afraid to share it.
Yeah, share work and exist loudly. You can share Framer work on Design Buddies, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I personally got my first job in UX design at Electronic Arts, EA. I used to work there, through sharing my work on LinkedIn. So I'm very bullish on sharing your work online, because I don't even have a design background. My background's actually in bioengineering and computer engineering. I have no design degree or certification, but I drew a lot in class.
To be honest, I would say I have a very small design background as well. I did some graphic design early on, but I would say 90% of the reason that I landed a job at Framer or like am passionate about design is because of the things that I do in my free time at my job. Like I would say, yes, there's great design educations that you can go for, but if you're really passionate about it, you don't need that. Just like go online, find free tools. Framer's free to try. You can publish your website for free. That's how I got into it. Like free tools that you can create amazing stuff with. Just like if you're really, really passionate about it, you have all the possibilities online to do it, all the free courses, all the free Framer stuff. So yeah, just like, yeah, go out and try it.
Yeah, definitely agree. Don't feel like you need to like get a university degree or go to a boot camp. I personally did it, and just LinkedIn, online, being loud about your work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your personal goals, Yuri, and your career?
Oh, whew. I mean, yeah, I've been a framer for such a long time, so I like consider I'm kind of stuck there. It's a joke that we make, but we always say like, oh, after 3 or 4 years, you're part of the furniture. But because I've been with Framer for such a long time, I have such a sort of like big investment in this becoming a success. Over the last year or year and a half, it has become a very big success, but we want to grow it even bigger. Like we want to take Framer to the next level and like have even more websites run on Framer. Most like no code websites being developed with Framer. Maybe take Framer as an app even further, so you can do more with it than just publish your website. So I would say my personal goals are very much tied to the Framer goals. But yeah, it's tough to say because I never sort of envisioned myself 7 years ago leading the marketing team. I always thought like, I'm a designer. I like to design. I'll just do like videos and the website at Framer. And now I'm sort of like leading the team and also being a very big part in just general things that happen at Framer and sort of strategy wise in marketing. So yeah, I don't really like. Yeah, I'm just running with it, and I'm just as long as it's fun to me and I feel like I'm growing skills wise, and sort of like I can make other people on the team successful. I can make Framer successful. That's a big win to me. So I'm taking it by day. But as long as you're having fun in what you're doing and you feel like you're growing, just run with it. And those are my goals, sort of like having fun every day and making sure that I learn something every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, very similar to
Yeah.
my goals. I used to do UX product design at Electronic Arts, but I actually quit my job earlier this year, like 4 months ago, to do like design buddies, content creation, design, illustration. I still do a
Yeah.
lot of product design on my own as well, so it's been really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also personally have some more. I've also been working with Framer's team to make some like short form videos, so I have some more coming up on my LinkedIn profile, Grace Ling. And I realized I forgot to introduce myself for those new buddies joining here. I'm Grace. I founded Design Buddies. I made it like 4 years ago when I was a student. And today we have over 150,000 combined members helping designers land jobs. And we really appreciate Yuri and Framer team for offering your time and resources to share more tips for designers to help them level up your craft. Because our goal is to help designers level up and have fun along the way. That's why we have a lot of cute bunny branding, and we just want to make career development fun and playful, but also free and accessible, and yeah, help everyone grow together as well. And you can find this recording on our YouTube, Design Buddies YouTube, LinkedIn. So if you missed that, we'll be sending you a follow-up email if you missed any part of this as well. And thank you so much, Yuri, and everyone for tuning in. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, a hippity hoppity good time.
Yeah. Thank you for
Buddies.
having me.
Yeah, thank
And thanks
you.
for everybody with the great questions and listening in.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna end the stream. Please stay on for
Bye
a bit.
bye.